Welcome to Slovenia. This is the second time I've been lucky enough to visit this stunning country. This time, thanks to Alchemist Adventures, my wife and I have been given this gorgeous 1250 BMW to ride around. Alchemist Adventures are one of Europe's premier motorcycle tour companies, based near Slovenia's capital, Ljubljana. The team are an absolute class act and offer amazing boutique tours that will take you on some awesome back roads through the Alps, the Balkans and even Mongolia. So come for a ride with us while we do a lap of one of the youngest countries on earth, and I'll give you a very abbreviated rundown on its amazing history. Yes, that's snow. We'll get to that in a minute. Ljubljana is the capital of Slovenia, and the first thing that will strike you about the city is its imposing castle. Well, that's if you're not totally encapsulated by how extraordinarily clean and tidy the place is. I almost find it painful to abbreviate the history of this city to nearly nothing, but there's only so much you can fit in a 15-minute video. The area was marshland before the city existed and was settled by humans around 2000 BC. It's also the site of a very intriguing archaeological find, the oldest wooden wheel and axle ever found. A pretty high-tech bit of kit for 5,200 years ago. It would seem that making high-tech cool stuff to keep humanity moving is definitely in Slovenia's DNA. There's actually one of those bad boys hanging off this 1250 that we're on. It sounded absolutely mint while we were riding around, but the microphone hasn't done it any justice at all, so I'll keep that to myself. And while we head out to take a very quick look at Slovenia's second largest city, Maribor, I'll fill you on a little bit more history. So from around 1100 AD, Slovenia was pretty much ruled by the Austrians. But before that, it was a mix of Celts and Romans, probably mainly Romans to be honest. And that's where the real history comes into it. Before we get to Maribor, we'll have a quick look at Ptuj. Ptuj was an awesome town to visit. Being a massive Roman army camp back in the day, there's heaps of Roman artefacts spread through what is otherwise a medieval or Gothic sort of town. But the best part of Ptuj for me was the story that revolves around the clock tower. When the clock tower was being built, the owners of the castle wouldn't contribute to its building. So when they completed it, the townspeople left the side facing the castle with no clock. Awesome bit of middle finger work in my book. Anyway, let's get up to Maribor quickly. Maribor was first recognised as a city in 1254, and up until the end of World War I, it was always part of the Austrian Empire. Being the capital of Slovenia's winemaking region, it brings me to this. Žamatovka, the oldest grapevine in the world, 450 years old and still producing 100 litres of wine a year. At just over 22,000 square kilometres, Slovenia is just under the size of Australia's biggest cattle station, Anna Creek. Unlike Anna Creek, however, Slovenia's weather can change in an instant, especially at this time of the year. But with all the right gear on, I can't say we were ever really physically uncomfortable. I wouldn't go as far as to say I was mentally comfortable with the snow to start with though. Pedramski Grad, or Pedrama Castle. First mentioned in history in 1274. Now, it's obviously built into a huge cave opening that you can see just above the castle there, for strategic reasons. Now, the best story around this castle is around Erasmus, Lord of Lug, one of the knights of Lug. Erasmus killed one of the Habsburg's generals, and then did a runner. Eventually he ended up in the castle here, and he was hiding out, but they found him because he was given away by one of his own men. Now legend has it that Erasmus was killed by one of the Habsburg's cannon shells. Went through the toilet that he happened to be sitting on at the time. That's the legend. So this all happened around 1450, and it's said that his girlfriend planted this lime tree on top of his grave near the castle. Now you remember I said one of the youngest countries in the world at the start of this video. Yet here I am going on about Roman forts and medieval castles. That's because although Slovenia was often recognised as a state throughout history, all the way up until 1991, it was always ruled by another entity. The lead up to Slovenia's eventual independence started just before World War I, when rumblings started amongst the Slovenes concerning breaking away from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The key players in the movement towards independence were quickly silenced by the cannons of World War I, when most of the country was forced into fighting with the Austrians against the Italian invasion. The Isonzo front, as it is known, was named after the Italian name for the Socha River, which ran through the valley that mostly separated the Austrian and Italian armies for the duration of one of the most devastating battles of World War I. Over its 2.5 years duration, the Isonzo front claimed an horrendous 1.2 million casualties. So as you can imagine, the Slovenes hold the memory of this battle as dearly, or if not more, than we hold Gallipoli. Although the Austrians and Slovenians gave Italy a good ass-kicking in the Isonzo front, at the end of World War I the Italians were on the right team. When Britain, France and America started handing out land to their mates after the war, Italy scored the whole Istrian coast, including the town of Piran, and that pretty much left Slovenia without a coastline. We're heading down to Piran now. Just got to get over this bit of high ground first. Does look good though, doesn't it? Oddly, Italy picked the wrong team in World War II, and when it was over, Slovenia got 47 kilometres of its coastline back between Trieste and the Croatian border. Piran, little town that lays on the very brief coastline that Slovenia has. It's actually the outermost point of their coastline. It was first settled by the Illyrians in around 650 BC. Since then it's had, as the rest of the country, every ruler that you could possibly think of, mainly Romans, so it's got a very Italian feel. So right through till basically after the Second World War, it's been very Italian, the whole town. And Istria itself, which is basically the territory here, was actually all Italian. It was given to the Italians after World War I because they picked the right team. In World War II they picked the wrong team and it got taken back off them, except for a little part just above Piran that surrounds Trieste. In the 1500s, 3/4 of the population of Piran got wiped out by the plague. That was while the Venetians were ruling. And today, since the fall of the Yugoslavian Federation, it's now Slovenian, and it's beautiful.
Righto, you lot, nothing to see here. Let's get back to the story. So heading back down to where people live, away from the woodpeckers and the bears, I'm going to take you down to the Socha Valley and try and give you a bit of an idea of how bad those guys had it in World War One.
If you look up behind me there, you'll see on that small hill there's a fort. That was part of the Isonzo front. Now, the terrain was horrendous, and it holds a lot of meaning still to the Slovenians because, as I said, they were conscripted into the Austro-Hungarian army, and at the time I think there was less than 1.3 million people in Slovenia, and they suffered 40,000 casualties. You do the maths. So if you put it in perspective, from an Australian perspective at least, we had 5 million people in Australia and suffered 60,000. So pretty horrendous, and it's well worth coming up here. There's a lot of stuff to look at, a lot of these forts, a lot of museums. And as I said, the Slovenians hold it all pretty dear to their hearts.
So after World War One, Slovenia hooked up with Serbia as part of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, a move which they thought was going to bring them closer to independence. Unfortunately, World War II broke out, and that's something I don't really want to dwell on. It's a bit of a downer in these parts. And frankly, their time under Yugoslavian rule wasn't much better. Nothing good ever comes from conflict. But when the Yugoslavian wars broke out in the early 90s, Slovenia jumped at the chance to do a runner. And after 10 days standoff with Serbia, they were independent. Finally, this beautiful country had a chance to be itself. I don't think there's a person alive that could deny that the Slovenian people, after 32 years, have done the most amazing job. This country is absolutely stunning. Its people are happy, they're friendly, and they have a country that the whole world should look up to. It's almost time to sign off on this video, and I think every Slovenian would know the iconic place I'm headed to do that from.
You couldn't possibly come to Slovenia without visiting Lake Bled. There are a lot of picturesque places in Slovenia that come pretty close to Lake Bled, but I think it holds a trophy.
There's a lot to tell about Lake Bled, but I'm not going to tell you anything because I want you to come here and experience it for yourself like we did. Better still, get onto alchemistadventures.com and organise a tour so you can do Slovenia by bike. Thanks for watching. Get out and do life.